is the landscape of college football because Georgia got their ass handed to them by Ole Miss, to be frank. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think there's a great team in college football. I From what I've watched and from what I saw, I think every team, this is NFL like, where every team has a flaw.
Yeah, I I I think that the 12-team playoff has certainly helped that. Um, and I don't think it's devalued the importance of these games. If nothing else, I think it's increased the value of some of these
Well, a
games.
little bit because if we're in a 14 playoff or even a six, Georgia loses that game to Ole Miss, they're not even in playoff contention.
Right. I I mean, if it were up to me, Georgia would drop probably out of the top 10 after this loss, but I don't think the CFP committee is going to do that because they love Georgia for some reason,
Well,
and they
again,
got.
if you told me Georgia and BYU played right now, I'm taking Georgia.
Oh yeah, BYU should not have probably shouldn't have won that game against Utah on Saturday, but
Yeah. So it's very weird the way they're doing the seeding now because the top four seeds, like BYU, is not obviously better than Tennessee or what have you, but they're ranked higher because they're going to be a conference champion.
right. Yeah, they're going to be ranked 9, but they would be number 4
Yes.
in the playoff because it's the top 4 champions, conference champions get a bye. Uh, I don't know what's happening with the ACC right now after Miami lost to Georgia Tech. I I I I just don't know with that situation.
I mean, it's Miami and Clemson.
Yeah. What about SMU?
Eh.
Okay, but Alabama just put a whooping on LSU, so LSU's done.
Yeah, this was kind of a disappointing weekend in college football. Like, there really wasn't a close game that mattered of significance.
I agree with you there. Um, okay, Ohio State, Indiana. The game time got announced for this. You
Oh,
are.
this is a big conversation on the internet today.
I hate this. This is going to be one of the biggest games of the season, and you're putting it at noon. Why? Stop this.
Okay,
This should
so
be on in prime time with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit on the call. By the way, sending our positive vibes and thoughts and prayers to Kirk Herbstreit and his family after the loss of their dog Ben. Uh, he was a staple on College Game Day. I know how hard that is to lose a pet. I've had to go through it
the
3 times.
heart, arguably next to losing, a relative, it's the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah. So
So, absolutely. Again, I'm not defending anybody here. I'm just gonna tell you, I thought Joe Klatt yesterday went on X and gave the best explanation he possibly could for why this game is not in prime time, why Big Noon kickoff is the way it is. And again, he works for Fox. You're going to say expected, yada, 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 yada. But his explanation, I thought, actually should have calmed some people down. And I actually think it makes sense. So when it comes down to it, and this is true, the Big Ten, we all know, we talked about it, the Big Ten does have a media rights deal. They have it with Fox for Big Noon, they have it with CBS for the 3:30 game, and they have it with NBC for the 7 o'clock game. In the off season, the three media partners, NBC, Fox, CBS, they did a draft. Now, networks can protect games. One of the games that actually got flexed out of Big Noon in a prime time was the Ohio State Oregon game. That was originally a Fox game. Fox gave that up to, I believe it was Michigan and Oregon they kept, which was a bad decision.
no, CBS had Michigan, Oregon.
Okay, well, it was a Michigan game. I don't remember exactly which Big Noon game it was that they wanted to keep Michigan. I know it wasn't Ohio State if that was already protected. Um, but essentially, they have all these media rights deals. And for games that, were not decided before the year or games that need to be moved up or what have you, Fox has the first pick because they have the most rights to the Big Ten. And again, and I said this a couple weeks ago, and I get it. I know you guys don't want prime time, and I completely understand it, but there's two factors here. Number one is the ABC and Herb Street and Power and all that, they no longer have Big Ten rights at all. Period. They only have SEC rights. So if the game was going to be on prime time, it would not be on ABC. It would have to go to NBC.
which I would have been fine with. Trust me, I understand that like Fowler and Herbstreit could not have called this game, but you generally, my feeling is if Fowler and Herbstreit are calling the game, you know it's a big time matchup. Like there's a reason they're going to be calling Tennessee, Georgia this coming Saturday. There's a
See,
reason they.
I feel the same way though about Gus and Joel and Noah Eagle and Todd Blackett. Like they're just the other team on that other network. Like I think college football has three really great A broadcast booths, just the way the NFL does.
So I agree with you about NBC and ABC, not so much about Fox. Gus Johnson can drive me crazy when he has an Ohio State game because it seems like he's very favorable towards Ohio State, and it drives me nuts.
Well, he did not sound that way against Penn State. He didn't sound that way against Purdue, and I don't blame that Purdue game wasn't even a contest. Um, but the other thing here is the ratings do show for whatever reason that the big noon game is the most viewed game in the college football week every week, regardless of matchup.
I I mean, you know my feelings. I still like College Game Day better. Um, and that's partially because I love the headgear pick at the end. I always have, always
No, I'm
will.
not talking about big noon kickoff. I'm talking about the big noon game itself.
No, I know, but I feel like you have to include Big Noon Kickoff in there because that's like the pregame show for the Big
Yeah,
Noon.
but game day is more watched by many people.
Yeah, but in terms of this, Indiana, Ohio State, it's most likely going to be a top 10 matchup. So, at best, I would have loved it to be at 3:30 with Brad Nessler and I forget the CF
Gary Anderson.
Gary Anderson on the call, or Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge. Sorry, not Fox.
So I still think Oregon is going to be the number one team in the country, but I don't think they are the number one team in the country.
I agree. Oregon is going to be number one. I do think they're the number one team, but not by a wide margin. We saw how that game played out in Eugene a few weeks ago when Oregon barely beat Ohio State. It looks like they're on a collision course to meet again in the Big Ten championship. How's it going to play when they meet on a neutral field in Indianapolis? I think it's going to be a different game. I still think I would give the slight edge to Oregon.
And by the way, they could play on the neutral field again in the CFP.
That is true.